friends, welcome back to another episode. As you saw in the intro, we have a new build area, and today I want to get into a bit of Ars Nouveau. This is, I don't know, it's just, I'm not a huge fan of magic mods, but Ars Nouveau is kind of different because it offers a bunch of utility, and I'd like to have a spell book with a couple of spells. Unfortunately, we don't have the missile spell, which I really like, making like a large AoE thing that like one-shots everything and probably like in a radius about the size of this room. So unfortunately that add-on mod is not in here, but anyways, we'll figure something out. So let's get started with this mod. The very first thing we need is some archwood, saplings and archwood, and you can get these in the market, or you can sift moss and you can get these saplings and just grow a little bit of the wood and you'll get it. Obviously, I already have a little bit, but what we're going to need to do is make some imbuement chambers. And these guys are going to allow us to make source gem. And source gems are used basically for everything throughout the mod, these guys. The way you get source gems is by either putting a piece of lapis or amethyst shard inside of an imbuement chamber, and then it'll give you a source gem. You could also do the block forms of those, or I guess not the lapis, but the amethyst. You can get a block of source gem, but we're just going to stick with regular lapis. So I'm going to place those guys here in the middle on top of our inventory cables, and we're going to automate this with Super Factory Manager. It's going to be great. Passively produce source gems. So I have these cables over here, and we need to connect it to our manager guy over here. So let's grab some cables and such from Super Factory Manager and a disk. So here's our manager below. I'm going to make sure that comes down here. And this is where all of those, let me grab a torch so you guys can see a little bit better. Down here is the bottom of all of those inventory cable at the top. So we're just gonna, I poke little holes so it's easier to see. And we're just gonna connect these all together. All right, so those guys are all connected to our manager, and we're also going to be using this interface over here. So we need to connect the interface to our manager as well. But we're also going to need to connect some cables to this wireless connector. So I think on the side over here, I'm going to bring down our manager cables and just hook it up to that. So that all looks nice and dandy. And then we just have to connect this wireless connector to our applied energistics storage, or the other wireless connectors. I have done a little bit of beautifying inside of this room. I'm trying to mess around with these Givy blocks from SciCraft, and I think it looks fine. Just add some dimension to the ceilings. So, I don't know. Seems to be okay for now. So anyways, I'm going to grab one of these. Basically anything we want to hook up to our applied energistics system, we can just link it up to these wireless connectors, and we can have it hooked up to our applied energistics system and interface with it. The only thing with these wireless connectors, I don't know if I mentioned it in our applied energistics saga, but basically they only work in the same dimension within about 500 blocks. So if you're doing something over long distances or different dimensions, you'll have to make a quantum ring. Right on cue, buddy. So let's hook up our wireless connector, and that's going to be online, and so is our interface. So in previous episodes, I've kind of been mostly glancing over the Super Factory Manager code. I've just kind of been providing a description below. I think maybe this setup will be a good opportunity to kind of go through Super Factory Manager and how it works. So I will do that. If we consider what we're doing, making these source gems, basically what we need to do is we need to pick up lapis and put a single lapis, or keep a single lapis inside of all 9 of these imbuement chambers, right? So what I'm going to do is stock some lapis in this interface. How about a stack? And then we have our Superfactory Manager cables hooked up to it in the back. So now we can pull from there and put it inside of the imbuement chambers. I'm going to put the disk in there, and let's just name this ours automation. And I like to get rid of these numbers because they're distracting. And we're going to just start. Every 20 ticks do. We need to just, let's think from the beginning, right? We're going to first input the lapis. So we're going to input lapis lazuli from interface. And you guys remember items, to check the item ID of an item, like to use in Superfactory Manager to filter it specifically, you need to enable advanced tooltips. So we press F3H and make sure it says advanced tooltips shown. And when you hover over an item, you're not looking at the white writing that says lapis space lazuli. That's not the actual, that's the name of the item, but it's not the name ID. Right below that, you see where it says Minecraft : lapis _ lazuli. That is what you're looking at. That's what Superfactory Manager uses to filter. In this case, it's the same for lapis, but if we take a look at something like combs from productive bees, here's a rose quartz comb, right? And you look at the white name and it's called rose quartz comb, but when you look at the actual item ID, it says productive bees : configurable _ honeycomb. So the name of this item, how Superfactory Manager sees it, is actually configurable honeycomb. And if you type in rose quartz comb, it's not going to be able to pick up that item. So do watch out for that. Sometimes they're different, so you do have to check that. So anyways, we're picking that up from the interface, and we need to output that to the imbuement chambers, but I actually want to keep one in each of them. So I'm going to write retain 1, and that'll make sure it always has 1. 2, and I'm going to put each, so it does the retain 1 to each of the imbuement chambers. And I will just call these imbuement gem because we're making source gem from them. And we can just write end. And now every time you see this exclamation mark, it means that there's some warnings in your program, and you can take a look. When you hover your mouse over your disk, it's going to show you those warnings in the yellow writing. This is basically just telling us we used some labels in the code, but we haven't, what do you call it? We haven't defined it in the world. So you shift right click to pull the labels from your manager, and you should see the little writing, and you can scroll through, or you can press right click and select whichever one you want. So let's say we select the interface. This is going to be our interface, and then the imbuement chambers for gems are right over here. I'm going to hold down Control so I can label all of them at once rather than doing it individually. Once I have those labeled, I'm going to push the labels back into the manager, and you can see these guys started working. So they all have lapis, and the progress is going up. They're getting converted into source gems. Now, once that is done, we'll need to pick up the source gems and put it back into the interface, so it goes into our applied energetics system. But if we just pick up anything, it's going to pick up the lapis before it's converted into source gem. So we need to filter for source gem specifically. So I'm going to put a forget, and basically what the forget does is it disregards all previous input statements. If I didn't put the forget, it would have the lapis lazuli in its input inventory, I guess. It's not a really inventory, but it would see this lapis lazuli. And when I say output to interface without the forget, then it's going to loop this lapis between the interface. So when you put forget, it's just going to make sure that it disregards any previous input statements. But anyways, what we need to do is we need to input the source gem from the imbuement chamber. That's called gem. So you can either do source gem or you can do accept lapis lazuli. Both of them work. We're just going to do it with source gems. And then I'm going to just output that back to the interface. All right, simple as that. And as soon as I press done, you can see that cycle through to a new set of lapis that's being crafted. So source gem is essentially automated. And I'm going to keep some source gem also inside of this interface because we're going to be using that next. The other thing that we need to passively craft in ours are these essences. And there's going to be 8 different essences that we need to automate. And these guys are done in the imbuement chambers as well, but you can see there's some extra items that are required. You basically just put those items on pedestals or platforms around the imbuement chamber. These items are not consumed, so you only just need to set it once, and then that's it. You don't have to like keep replenishing it. And then you put source gem in the middle instead of the lapis, and it's going to turn into some kind of essence. So let's grab some more imbuement chambers. I've got some over here. And we'll put those guys on top of this. And again, that's going to require 3 pedestals each, right? And you can put these pedestals around like that. The imbuement chambers basically look at a 3x3 block, basically 1 block all the way around. If you put it over here, it's not going to be able to detect it. But instead of using these bigger ones, I'm going to use these platforms. And that way I can put it on the side of the block like this. And I don't know, looks a little bit fancier. All right, with all those guys set over there, we just need to put those items on the platforms. So let's look at the essences again. And I'm going to go through and look at all of these items, and it's going to require 3 items per essence. And so I'll gather all of these and we can come back. The snow, if you don't know how to get snow, we're going to use the entropy manipulator from Applied Energistics. This is really easy to make. And if you grab a piece of water, you can put water down. And if you shift right click on the source block, it's going to turn it into ice. But if you shift right click on flowing water, it's going to give you snowballs. So that's how we're going to get some snow. And we can combine this into a snow block. Alrighty, so I've got all these items gathered, and all we have to do is just put them inside of the pedestals over here. And once those are set, we just need to provide these imbuement chambers with source gems, and it'll create those essences. And we have the source gems in the interface over here, so we can just use Super Factory Manager to move that. So I'll go ahead and put another forget to separate out the previous input statements. And we're going to input the source gem from the interface. And what we want to do again is output retain 1 to each imbuement. And these ones I'll call essence, because they're making essences. And then we'll put a forget. And we want to pick up the essences, but all the essences have different names. So rather than filtering 8 different items, I can just say input accept source gem. So we'll blacklist the source gem, so it's going to pick up any of the essences, but not the source gem, because then it would pick that up before it's finished crafting. So we're going to pick that up from the imbuement essences, and we're going to output to interface. Super simple. And we just need to do more labels. So here are the imbuement chambers for the essence. And you can see these guys all have source gems inside already. All right, we'll let those guys go. And while that's going, why don't we go ahead and facade these things. And I'm going to use, how about some of these blocks for these guys? And then we'll use these darker purple blocks for these. So those are facaded now, and they look on par with the theme. So those things are done. Now there's another form of crafting with Ars Nouveau. There's the imbuement chambers, and then there's a thing called the Enchanting Apparatus. And the Enchanting Apparatus is used for a bunch of different crafts that we'll need to do. And that's why I have this area set up over here. So the way that works is we're going to need an arcane core. And this guy goes in the center, like so. And we need to put the Enchanting Apparatus on top. That is this guy. And we'll surround this with pedestals. And what we're going to do is automate this with both Applied Energistics and Super Factory Manager. So the way that's going to happen is we'll make our patterns in with Applied Energistics, and the pattern provider is going to dump all of those items inside of the secret storage. And then we're going to use Super Factory Manager to put it in the Enchanting Apparatus. And the way this works is basically you put things on the pedestals to set the recipe, and then at the end you put whatever goes in the middle to start the enchanting apparatus thing. So let's say something like Mage Bloom seeds, right? You grab a normal seed and 4 source gems. And if I try to put the seed in the middle, you can say that no recipe is found. So we actually have to do the pedestals first before we can even do that. It literally will not accept an item unless there's a valid recipe. So once the 4 source gems are set in there, I can right click the seed in here and you can see the craft is going to start. And I can't pull from it while the craft is going until it's done. Right, so we don't have to worry about filtering or any of that stuff. And there you go, there's the Mage Bloom seed. So with that knowledge, let's go ahead and automate this with applied energistics. So first I'm going to need a pattern provider, and we'll use an extended one. And we need this guy to be on the secret storage. And we need to hook that up to this wireless connector so it can be linked to our system. So I'm going to grab just some regular old cables. Oops. And we will hook this guy up. All right, so now our pattern provider is online. And what we need to do with that is, so when you're looking at your pattern terminal, you see how it shows like this is the Allthemodium furnace. So it shows what the pattern provider is attached to. We have the assembler matrix over here, obviously. But if I scroll down, you can see all of these guys are the crystal assemblers, and we have 20 of those, I guess. And this one is called the framed secret storage because that's what the barrel is. But I don't want it to be framed secret storage because that has no meaning in terms of this automation. So I want to rename this guy to something that'll make more sense, like Enchanting Apparatus. So I know that that's what it is. So I can just put that in an anvil and call this Enchanting Apparatus. So you can see now this is renamed to that. And when I put it back and go in here, I can literally search Enchanting Apparatus, and that's the barrel that's going to show up. So that'll make it much easier for us to know what those recipes are for and to just like search it and then put the recipes in rather than having to scroll through a bunch of different items, a bunch of different pattern providers. So with that set up, and you can see I'm using, this could be any storage like chest, barrel, whatever. I'm using the one from Framed Blocks because you can, whatchamacallit, you can facade it like that. And so now we have this storage that blends in and is invisible basically. So I think that looks very cool. And let's write the code for it. So the applied energistics pattern provider is just going to dump all the items in here, but it's up to Superfactory Manager to put them inside of our pedestals to like actually finish the craft. So we're going to go ahead and start a new thing here. And I guess I can label this Enchanting Apparatus. And this guy can be... Now, what's going to happen is, you guys remember how we have to put the items on the pedestals first? Basically, we're going to make sure every time we make a recipe with applied energistics. So let's take a look at like some of the armor from Ars Nouveau, right? When we're making this thing, it's going to require all these items, and then whatever's in the center goes in the Enchanting Apparatus. We're going to make sure that this item is set as the first item in our pattern. That way, every single time, because your pattern provider will output items in order as they appear in the grid from left to right, top to down. So that means everything that goes in the center Enchanting Apparatus is going to appear in this first slot, and then all the rest of the items need to go into the pedestals. So we can use that knowledge to kind of make this work for us. So what I'm going to do is say input from the, we'll just call it barrel, and I'm only going to pick up from slots 1 through, let's say 12, right? We're going to have to say slots. That's because if you take a look at the Enchanting Apparatus and you hold Control and press I, it's going to label all the slots for you. And the first slot is not slot number 1, it's actually slot number 0. So we're going to be picking up from 1 all the way through 12. You're never going to need to go that high because there's only 8. Like at maximum, we can only have 8 different items in the Enchanting Apparatus because there's only 8 pedestals. So from 1 through 8 is what you would use, or 1 through 8. But I don't know, I just like 12 for some reason, so we'll leave it at that. So we're going to do that, and then we need to output one of those items to each of the pedestals. So that's really easy. Just say output 1 to each pedestal. And then we're going to do a forget so that doesn't get mixed. And then we're going to input the thing in the middle. And that is what's going to have to go inside of the enchanting apparatus. But if we take a look, the enchanting apparatus is not currently connected to the inventory cables because the arcane core is in the way. So we either need to connect it with cables like this, and that looks really hideous. Or we can do some kind of wireless item transfer, because Superfactory Manager itself doesn't do any wireless. So I'm actually going to utilize modular routers here. If there was entangled blocks in this mod pack, I would have definitely used entangled blocks, but we don't have that. So modular routers is going to be my choice. And we'll just make a couple of these guys, and we will need puller and sender modules Mark II. And you do that by just combining it with a piece of ender pearl. All right, so those guys are set. And what we're going to do, let me just put these guys down below over here. And you want these to be touching your inventory cables as well, so Superfactory Manager can put it inside. So that item that is we're picking up from slot 0 that needs to go to the center, I'm going to output that to the modular router. And that's all I need to do. Right, so that item is going to go to the modular router, and then the modular router needs to send that to the enchanting apparatus. So I'll do that in the one that's back here. So the one in the back is going to get the item from Superfactory Manager and then send that directly to the enchanting apparatus. And then we need to pull that item from here and send it back to the pattern provider. So I'm going to need to send it to this pattern provider. So I'll select that guy, and we need to pull it from the enchanting apparatus. And again, because the enchanting apparatus doesn't allow you to pull the item out while it's crafting, we don't need to worry about filtering it. As soon as the craft is done, then it'll be able to pick it up. So we're going to pull from the enchanting apparatus and then push to the pattern provider. So these guys are all set up. I don't like seeing the lasers when these guys pull it. There's some lasers. So we can actually get rid of that by making these muffler upgrades. And we'll want to use 3 per. And that's going to stop their animations. It's going to stop the noise. It's going to stop the laser and the particles. And I'm also going to add some speed upgrades just to make it fast, but it's honestly probably not necessary. The maximum speed upgrades you can do is 9. But 6 will be plenty for us. All right, so that should be all set up. And one last thing we need to worry about is if we request multiple crafts for this, then the pattern provider is going to just dump the items for all of those crafts in Enchanting Apparatus, and that's going to screw with our what do you call it? With the way we're handling the items, because then basically everything is going to get jumbled together. So we do want to put the pattern provider in blocking mode. And what blocking mode is going to do is it only inserts one of those crafting recipes at a time. So if the input inventory already contains those inputs from the pattern, it's not going to input another one. But then that could also be a problem because if we have multiple crafts going on, as soon as Superfactory Manager moves those items into the pedestals, this barrel will be empty, which means that it's going to insert the next set. And while that craft is going on, Superfactory Manager is going to try to move those items into the pedestals again. So then we're going to get multiple items from different crafts in the pedestals. We can solve that a couple ways. We can have Superfactory Manager do a check, like if we need to make sure those pedestals are empty before moving those items. That's easy to do. We could also handle it on our pattern provider by making it locking the craft until the crafting result is returned. I think that's what I'm going to do. So we can press this to lock it until the primary crafting result is returned. That way, as soon as this pattern provider outputs the first set of ingredients, it's going to be locked and it's not going to do anything until it receives the finished craft result of that item back in its inventory. It has to come to this inventory. If you put it like inside of the interface and it goes to your system, it's not going to unlock that pattern provider. So it has to go to that specifically. Okay, and with that, we've basically fully automated this. We just need to do the labels. So here's the barrel, and there are the pedestals, and they are not connected by cables, so we need to hook that up to our controller. So we can just use those cables on the side here, and that should be good. We forgot the modular router. And remember, this is the one we need to output the item to, which was the one in the back that's sending it to the enchanting apparatus. So there is that. And don't forget to push the labels. All right, so this should be fully automated. Let's try that recipe that we did with the seed. So we can craft that. What was it called? It was the Mage Bloom seed. And the wheat seeds is what's going inside the middle, and that's in the first slot. So that looks great. And we're gonna make that. Go over here, search enchanting apparatus, and we'll put that in there. And let's craft like 4 of these, just so we can check how that thing is working too. So you can see those items went in there and it started the first recipe. There's nothing in here yet. So our pattern provider is locked. As soon as that is done and gets returned to the pattern provider, it inserts the next crafting ingredient. So we've got this guy fully automated. There is one other thing we need to take care of for the enchanting apparatus. If we take a look at something like these armors that we're making in there, you can see it requires source. So we do need to have some source nearby in order for some of the crafts to happen. So let's also take care of that. I do have a source jar that's nearly full. I'm gonna put that guy over here for now. And what I'm gonna be doing is storing source inside of our applied energistics system and moving it with that. And we do need a source cell. And we have 2. We have the normal one, and then we have the one from the mega cells. So let's make the recipe for both of those. And again, the cell housing that goes in the center is in the first slot, so that looks good. We're gonna also make a recipe for that and also the mega cell one. And I believe we also need source gem. So the ones that are blue are the crafting table ones that can go in our assembler matrix. The ones that are purple are processing patterns. So that's how you can distinguish them. I'm not going to need that anymore. And let's see if we can't make one of these cell housing. We are missing 1 manipulation essence. These guys take so long. Which one's manipulation? This guy. You can make these guys go a little bit faster if you put source around, but before long we're gonna have a ton of those. All right, let's make another one of, so it's gonna have to make the normal source cell housing first, and then it can make the mega one. So let's see how that works. Perfect. There's the first one. And there's the second one. And you can see this guy took some source. So we did this earlier in our playthrough. I'll show you guys how we're going to be making source here momentarily. We're going to take this, and I believe I have some 256 million storage components. So we'll just make the biggest cell we can. And we need to put this inside of our drives. I'll just put it up here. So now we have the ability to store source inside of our applied logistic system, which is really nice. And we can come over here. And basically what I need to do is from our system, export source into this source jar so it's always full. So we're going to use an export bus. And I'm going to facade this. So the export bus will go underneath that, and we're going to put the facade on top. Let me just grab some cables. There we go. So now that looks seamless. And we'll hook that up to the rest of our stuff. Okay, we do need to, what do you call it? Filter this to do source and also add some acceleration cards. We honestly probably don't need acceleration cards, but it's fine. So this guy, you can grab any source jar to filter it. And when you hover over, you can see if I left click, it's gonna filter the source jar. If I right click, it's gonna filter the source that's inside the source jar. So we're going to right click to filter the source. Now, any source that's in our system is going to be outputted into here. Obviously, we don't have any yet, but we're going to take care of that right now down here. I know it's a little bit dark, but bear with me. We're going to set this up. I am going to use SNAD. Basically, source. There are these source links, and they generate source based on whatever's going around. So like the agronomic one, which is what we're going to be using, generates source as things grow near it. The volcanic one uses lava or coal, basically combustible materials. It burns it to make source. The alchemical one uses potions, and we have vitalic, which when baby mobs are growing, it does that. I think also when mobs are killed, it picks up source. So anyways, bunch of options, but we are doing it with SNAD. And basically what's going to happen is we're going to somewhere nearby put down this source jar. Like, how about over here? That should be okay. And then underneath it, I'm going to put our source link. They don't have to be touching. The source link will automatically push source into a source jar nearby, but I'm just putting it next to it like that. And then we're going to have to use an import bus. On the source jar, and that's going to pull. And hopefully that works and I don't have to do it from the top, but we'll test it. So this is set up, and basically we just need to grow things near it. And the reason why I'm using SNAD is because SNAD makes cactus or what's the other thing? Sugarcane grow really fast. Basically that's how fast it goes. And you can see as soon as it grows, we're getting a little bit of source, and it looks like this is picking up the source in there. We want to automatically destroy this cactus. So if we grab a piece of wall, for example, we can put that in the middle, and because cactus basically grows, it's gonna do that. All right, and once these guys go, basically every time it breaks, it's gonna tick the SNAD, and it's gonna make the cactus grow faster. But this one that's not going, I can just pick it up and put it back down, and we're getting source in our system. I don't want to listen to this sound, so I'm gonna, oops. What I'm gonna do is stand over here in the middle and open up our ESM settings and open up a new thing, and we'll call this source cactus. And I'll set the radius to just 3, and we need to block will break. Looks like 3 is not enough. How about 4? There it is. So now we're not going to hear that anymore. I need another snad. And then we also have to get rid of all of this cactus that's going into my inventory. So let's grab a trash can. And I'm going to use the collectors from Zycraft. The reason why I like these guys is because they pick up items before they spawn in the world. So you don't have to worry about magnets or anything like that. I'll just put that on top of the trash can and filter cactus. So it's only going to pick up cactus and it's pushing it into the trash can automatically. So those guys are all getting deleted. And you can see those items don't appear in the world. So my magnet isn't going to pick it up. I don't need a demagnetization coil or anything to worry about. Okay, so that is all set up. We are getting source. Source is automated down here. If we go back up, our source jar you can see is 100% full, which is what we like to see. And I do want to also facade these inventory cables with the same as these items. If I do that with Super Factory Manager, it's not great because Super Factory Manager doesn't support connected textures yet, so it's not going to look nice and pretty like that. So what I'm going to do is use camel, these guys, and I do need one more. And then we combine these camel blocks with whatever block we want to use. In this case, the overlapping blackstone, gilded blackstone. I need 9 of those guys. And then once you have these camel blocks, you can just right click it on any block and it's going to facade it for you. And it also supports connected textures. And we'll pick that up to do the one in the middle. Sweet. So this is fully set up now, our enchanting apparatus. Now let's quickly talk about some spells and stuff. So we do need a spell book from ours. And that's relatively easy to make. So we've got our novice spellbook. We're immediately going to upgrade this to the mage's spellbook. I just need some blocks of quartz. And then we could go one more, but actually we need this Wilden tribute. And I'll show you guys how that's done. Why don't we start with that? You get the Wilden tribute by doing a ritual in ours. And for rituals, you need a ritual brazier. One of these guys. So we'll need another pedestal and just like that. And then we need to do the Wilden, summon Wilden tribute. And we'll have to kill this guy twice. So I'll make 2 of those guys. And we will need, if you do the summon of, if you take a look at the tooltips on there, it's going to, when you do this ritual, it's just going to spawn different Wilden mobs, and that's how you get these horns and spikes and wings. I'm getting them from our mob farm, so not a big deal for me. But if you want to summon the boss, you're actually going to have to augment that ritual with one of the horns from all of those mobs. This guy, the Wilden Chimera, is a little bit of a pain to kill. So I'm going to put him inside of the compact machine that we killed our wither in. So if I go in here, you can see we've got all these spikes around, and basically I'm just going to put this ritual down. Throw, you can press Q to throw those items in there to augment it, and then just right click to run the ritual. So this should spawn our the Wilden Chimera, which is the boss. Oh, we destroyed all the spikes. We'll put the spikes back down. And then we're just gonna get out of there and wait for him to die. He does have 1,000 health, so if you try to do this without great gear, it's not gonna be that amazing. The Just Dire Things armors and weapons are definitely not, I am not a big fan. All right, so we got 1 tribute. I'm going to do this one more time for the second one, and I'll show you guys in just a second why we need 2. He's also stuck in the walls. That's why he's not like attacking us. If he's in the wild, he goes kind of crazy. Tries to wreck your face. All right. that is done. So we have 2 tributes. That is all I needed. And that's how you do rituals in Ars Nova. It's really easy. You just put the ritual brazier down, you click in your ritual tablet, whatever it is you want to do. And then if it requires items or whatnot, you augment it and it's going to run the ritual. If you take a look at, let's say, like locate structure. So this is a good one to, like, before you have a compass, you can like find different structures. If you press U on that, it'll show you all the different items that show the different things. So if you put in like ender pearls, it's going to give you the stronghold. If you put in 2 mushrooms, it's going to give you a woodland mansion. So you can press U on the tablets to figure out what items you need to augment it with. All right, that means we are ready now to make our Archmage spellbook. And we can actually take this to the next tier, which is Allthemodium. So let's make some Allthemodium templates. And we can duplicate these guys. And just like that, we have our Allthemodium spellbook. I do also want to make the gears. That's why we killed him twice. And let's, those are done all in the enchanting apparatus. So let's take a look at, I'm going to make the recipes all the way up to the unobtainium one. We do need these marks of mastery, and the Wilden tribute goes in the center. So we need to always double check that that's in the first slot. So there's that. And then to make the base armors, we are basically going to need any kind of iron armor surrounded by these mage bloom fibers. So I'll make recipes for iron boots, and that's going to allow us to make these guys, not those guys. All right, so now we're going to have the recipes for those. And then I'm just going to press U on this, and we can, so the tier 2 one, you see it takes the tier 1 plus 2 blaze rods, and that'll give you the tier 2 one. And I can just put that in there to load the recipe, and then press U and go to the upgrades. Oh, I guess while we're doing this, we can also do the tier 3 for it, which requires the chorus fruit. And all right, and then once we have all the tiers, so we have tier 1, 2, and 3, we're going to go to tier 4. And that's going to be the, I'm going to use the Aquamancer one. It doesn't matter which tier we're, so the tier 4 ones are like elemental ones. So you have the fire one, the water one, the air one, the earth one, I believe. But I'm going to make these guys because they're blue and they're fun. It really doesn't matter which one of these that you use. And you want to make sure, so this one has to be the one that we know how to make. So let me bookmark these. Because processing patterns with applied energistics don't deal with MBT data, so I can't just like turn on substitutions. So it has to be for sure the arcanist ones, and this is the sorcerer's one. So we want to search arcanist and the hat, not the tier 1, but the tier 3. So I'm bookmarking them over here, and I'll be able to drag it from there into the recipe. You do have to make sure it is the tier 3 one. Aquamancer, tier 4. And then from there, you're going to go into Allthemodium, Vibranium, all that stuff. And you can actually make patterns for this with applied energistics as well. So I'm going to, again, this one, I guess you can enable substitutions, but I'm going to use the exact ones anyways. So we can make smithing table recipes in applied energistics. So that's super cool. And you just put this in your assembler matrix and it'll handle it for you. It's really great. All right, now we would be able to craft all of those all the way up to the Allthemodium tier if we had Vibranium and Allthemodium, which we don't. So let's take care of that next. I'm going to go back over here to our old island. You guys miss it? We will be moving out of here soon, by the way. And let's take a look at how we get Vibranium. So you get Vibranium by making the Vibranium ingot inside of this ender crafting, and that's going to require all of these geors and also the uraninite geor. And the uraninite geor is going to be made inside of the ender crafting as well, and that's going to require uranium geor. So let's grab 9 or 10 uranium ingots and throw it in our automated thing. And that's going to give us another uranium G ore. And we need to make this ender crafter. So we'll make a couple stacks of those. And this ender crafter requires these alternators to work. So we'll make a few of those and put the ender crafter down and surround it with these alternators. And we can take our G ore. It's going to go in the middle. And what did it require? Uraninite. And we put those guys around, and it's going to start crafting very, very slowly, but we can speed it up. Right, so we have budding uraninite, and I'm gonna replace the silver one with it. And we need to filter this guy to also pick up uraninite. So now that is being picked up as well. And we do need those shards. So what I'm going to do is turn off my farm real quick and pick up these items because they're auto smelting everything. And you can just shift right click and turn off the auto smelt and put the pickaxes back inside. And when we turn this on, now we are getting a bunch of all those shards. So I let that run for just a little bit, and then I'm going to turn it back off and turn these on again so they continue to smelt them down. We were making the Vibranium ingot. So we have all of these G ores, I believe. We do need this crystalline ingot, and that is done through extended crafting. So we're going to have to set this up as well. And we need the tier 3 crafter, and there's the auto one and the normal one. We're going to have to start with the normal one at first, and it's got a bunch of tiered crafting. So I'm just going to make crafting patterns for all of these. And when you're making it, make sure you're not, because this one, you see how it's cycling through the auto and the normal one. Make sure you're making the normal one because the auto ones are harder to make. Let's see if we can't make one of these elite things. Perfect. There it is. Look how fast that is. All right, we're going to put this guy down here and we can have the recipe. So for Vibranium, we're going to need this crystalline ingot. That's right. So we need a bunch of diamonds, lapis, nether stars, iron, gold, and hopefully I can shift click this in. Yes, perfect. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. That should be good enough. So that gives us 12 of these guys, which we can use to make Vibranium. And we will need those G ores. So emerald, uranium, uraninite, diamond, iron, quartz, gold, all of them. And with all of those, we can make 12 Vibranium ingots. Ta-da, we got Vibranium. We do need the smithing templates. I hope we're not going to need a ton of this stuff. Oh, we need a block. And there's no way to get ancient stone, right? We're going to need a lot of Vibranium. I think what I'm going to do is, I don't want to sit here and make a bunch of those. So maybe in the next episode, we'll set up bees, productive bees, and then we can automate the Vibranium. But for now, we can just go up to the Allthemodium tier of these gears. And let's go back over to our island. This is going to take some finagling because just, again, MBT data issues. So, but basically the way you can fix it is by crafting it one time. And then I'm going to say that I'm going to take the one that it crafted, because I know that's the result we're going to get, and put that inside. Oh, we don't want 4. We want 1. We're going to put that in there, and now it's going to expect the one that it actually crafted and not whatever other one it was expecting it. So unfortunately, we can't do that with this one because we need to basically just craft it once. All right, now that I have a full set of the Aquamancer stuff that we've created, which is the exact MBT values that we're going to get, I'm going to put them back in here and change it to that, and make sure you press the arrow to confirm it. I'm going to press that in. And again with the boots. So you can see when I put this in there, it doesn't know that it can make this Allthemodium one. But if I put those boots in, now all of a sudden the MBT data matches and it knows. I guess it's fine if you use substitutions. I don't love to do substitutions because if you had a set of armor that was like enchanted or whatever, and you wanted to keep that, then it's gonna use those. So I do prefer having it craft a new set. There's one other thing I wanted to cover for like the spell book when you're making spells. You do need the scribes table. And this guy allows you to make the glyphs. So when you press C on your book, right now you can see I have basically no glyphs. If you look at all, these are all the ones that we need to unlock. And the cool thing about, we have Ard's Energistics in this pack, which adds those source cells so we can do source. But another cool thing it adds is it allows your scribes table, if it's next to an interface, to pull the glyphs required for learning, or to pull the items required for learning a glyph directly out of your system. So this one, for example, just requires a water essence. And when I select that, it should pull it directly from our system. I don't know why it has a hard time. Maybe you guys can help me with this. So here's an interface and it's not working, but maybe if we move it over here by our controller and I grab an interface and I put this guy next to it and do that same thing. Where was that one? This guy. You can see it works here. I don't know why it doesn't work in the other place. Isn't that strange? So watch, and that one's an oversized interface, so you could say that maybe that's causing issues, or maybe that because it has these things in it. Look, I'm gonna put this interface back, and we'll put the table in the same orientation. Maybe it's the orientation that matters. So I'm gonna do the same thing, right? Select it. Oh, now it works. Maybe it's just the orientation. Oh, it has to be an empty interface. Are you kidding me? All right, what we're gonna do is make another interface. We'll put this guy here and we'll put this other interface over here. And now maybe it'll work. Yes, okay. So it looks like maybe the interface has to be completely empty with nothing going around in it. Interesting. So I just made 5 of these, I only need 1. So this is a great way. So instead of having to look through and like your inventory to like pick up all of these items and throw it in here, as long as you have it in your system, it's going to automatically, like this thing if you want to make wabam, it's just going to pick those up. Do we have totems of undying? So just make sure you don't have any other interface that has items in it nearby. It has to be apparently completely empty. One other thing we're going to make is mage light, just so we can light up all of these things. And then I'll let you guys go. It's been a long episode. So I'm going to learn conjure mage light and press C in our spellbook. And this is how you craft spells, is you first need a form. So how you're going to do it. You can do it on yourself. So the mage light basically it conjures light. If you do it on yourself, it's going to give you night vision. If you do a projectile, it's going to shoot that mage light, and then whatever thing it hits, it's going to, let's just see. So self, and then conjure mage light is this guy. And you can name the spell. So I'll say mage light. And now if I do it on myself, you can see it just gave me night vision. So we've got 30 seconds of night vision. But you can add amplifies to like extend the time on it. If you hold shift over it, it'll show you what it can do. Okay, so that was on yourself. It's going to give you night vision. Then if we remove that and do a projectile and shoot it, so you can see it shoots it, and then it's going to place a mage light over here. So I can do that, and from far away, should be able to light these. It's not working with that. I want to be able to light these mage light torch things. So for that one, we're going to use touch, and it's going to allow us to put it on there. But I don't want the purple one. I want to be a gold color. And if you go under spell styles, you can kind of customize everything on here. and we were dealing with Mage Light, which is this one. And you can see that the color, if I open this, is the purple. So we're going to select gold and make it just a little bit brighter and save. So now when I do touch Mage Light on this, I have to hold shift. Now you can see it's a gold color instead of the purple. So we can light all of those up and do the same in here. All right, so a little bit of an intro into our Nouveau. We didn't cover absolutely everything, and we haven't really made any useful spells yet, but we will do that as we progress through the series. I think this is where I'm going to leave it for you guys so we don't run too long. And most likely, I do want to automate Vibranium and Unobtainium, and the only ways to really do that right now is with productive bees. So I think next episode we'll come back and we'll deal with bees. That's gonna be a good one. So, anyways, thank you guys so much for being here and supporting the series. Hopefully, I will see you in the next episode.